Hello, and welcome to my short little video here. The reason I'm putting this together is because I had trouble when I was taking this thing, field stripping it, and putting it back together, and I thought maybe I was doing something wrong. I don't think I am. I think it's just very tight. This gun is brand new. It has not been fired yet. It's a Sig Sauer 1911 Scorpion model with a threaded barrel. Brand new. And I'm hoping after I fire it will loosen up and this field stripping and reassembly will go a lot easier. The first thing we want to do, obviously, is make sure it's empty. No magazine. And then pull it forward. Nothing in it. So we're good there. And then it's best to go ahead and make sure it is cocked. And then we are going to put it on its back here to give yourself a little bit of a pressure. And we have a recoil spring assembly right here. And what we're going to need to do is we're going to depress that to give us room to move this barrel nut counterclockwise. So we're going to press that down, and as we press it down, we're going to rotate the barrel nut. I'm trying to do this with my opposite hand as usual, sorry about that, to about the 9 o'clock position. Now we got to keep a lot of pressure on that because that thing is under some serious pressure. You can see the white paint on there from where I was reassembling it earlier. My hand slipped off as I was moving the barrel nut, and it flew up and hit the ceiling. So it does have some pressure. Okay, once we get that out and we release the pressure off the assembly, the next thing we need to do is we need the slide release lever needs to come out. Now the way we do that is we're going to press it out from the other side with this little button right here. But in order to do that, we have to have the slide in the correct position to allow it to come out. You can see two notches here on the slide. This front notch is where we actually lock the slide back with our release lever here. This second notch is specifically for tear down and reassembly. So we want to slide this back until it lines up with the back portion of this slide release lever. Once that's lined up, we can then just press that button from the other side. Hopefully. There. Sometimes you got to move it a little bit, and it'll pop up, and then we just grab it and we pull it out. After we do that, the next thing we need to do is we need to slide this all the way forward, and like I said, this thing is kind of new, so it's a little bit cranky sometimes, but the entire assembly will come apart then. The slide will come off of the handle. And you'll notice this fell out. This is your recoil spring guide. It's tapered to where it will only fit on the barrel one way. I've seen in other 1911s where this is actually kind of stays usually connected to the recoil spring. In this model, it's very, very loose and does not stay together. So no need to worry about that. Those pieces can come apart with no issue. So next we want to get the barrel out. Since this is a threaded barrel, you don't have to worry about that if you don't want to. Sometimes I take it apart, but you need to rotate this barrel nut. It was over here at 9 o'clock, back around past 6 o'clock to 4:30 or so, and then it will actually come out. Now you'll notice with this, a threaded barrel, it's not going to come completely off unless I do remove this threaded protector here. So just to show full disassembly, I will take that off, and notice that slides off. You also notice this little nipple, this little budge there. That is what has to line back up with the area underneath the barrel when you go to put it back in. But if you remember 4:30, 5 o'clock, it'll slide right on and then rotate it back around to 9 o'clock as we put it back together. So once that comes apart, this barrel then is now free to slide out the front of the slide. And then there we have our parts and pieces for a field strip 1911. Our barrel, our slide, our barrel nut. I guess this probably has a real name, but I just call it my threaded barrel protector. Our recoil spring guide, and then our recoil spring cap, and then our slide release button mechanism here. So those are all the pieces of taking it apart. This is obviously as far as you really need to go with just typical cleaning and things like that. Reassembly is somewhat obvious, but actually a little more difficult. You put things back in the reverse order you took them out. But what I've found with this particular gun, I don't know if it's the model or the fact that it's brand new, that needs to be shot some to loosen it up, but actually getting the slide and this to kind of get back together is very difficult, and I'll kind of show you what's going on there. So reverse order, we're going to put the barrel back in first. We slide it in from the front, and it will kind of lock in place. One thing I want to show you here and that you have to keep in mind, this right here, this eyelet that you see there, make sure you get a good look at it. It needs to be in that up position when we go to finally put this together, but what you'll notice is it's kind of free floating there, and it's kind of difficult to get it to stay there. But when you put it back together, you have some leniency there to move it around, because what's going to happen, this is the hole that actually lines up with the slide release here. So that's going to slide through there, so we have to make sure it's visible once we go to put it back together. So once we get the barrel back in, we can go ahead and put the barrel nut back on. So remember, we're going to want that at about 4:30 or 5 o'clock until it slides all the way flush with the slide, and then we're going to rotate it back around to about 9 o'clock. And I can go ahead and put my threaded barrel protector thingamajig, sorry, I don't even know the official name of it, back on. Okay, next we can go ahead and put our spring back in with our guide. Now remember, this has this concaved area to it that fits right on the barrel, and just make sure the spring slides onto that. And that's going to seem really kind of loose and whatever. That's just the way it is. And now for this particular gun, the most difficult part is getting these two to go back together. And this takes a lot of force. And like I said, I hope it's because it's new, but the reason is, set that down for a second, you'll notice on this portion here, when we go to slide it back together, we've got this guy right here, and he likes to kind of hang up there, and you think you could just push it down flush and you would be fine. The problem I've seen so far is that even with it just kind of laying there on its own, this thing does not want to go back together, and I must put a lot of pressure on that in order to give it room for this slide to go back on. So we'll see if I can get this done here first try. It is, I'm not joking, it is difficult. So theoretically all we have to do is start sliding this back on, keep a little bit of pressure here to make sure that spring doesn't go flying out or something like crazy like that. But you'll notice, you can even hear that I'm hitting on something. I'm not sure if this is focused well enough or not, but I'm hitting on this right here. So I need to slide it back forward some and push down on that. And when I say push down on it, I'm still working on the best way to put enough pressure on it in order to get this slide to start coming backwards. Okay, now it started. So once it starts, it's okay. And then my goal is to slide it back. It's still tight, I'm telling you. I'm trying to find the best way to do it without doing that and going too far. But like I said, it is very difficult. So once I've got that, my goal then is to line up where I was before with this notch back here. But the most important thing I have to do first is get this slide release back down in through that hole in the barrel. So I get it lined up as well as I can, and then I push this down in there. Now, one thing to be careful of, if you don't like a scratched up 1911, mine's already showing a couple little marks from stuff, but when you go to rotate this back up and put it here where it belongs, you got to pull it back out some and get it up there. If not, you're going to basically just take this big long scratch and you're going to have it all up and down the hand grip there. So now this piece here has a little spring inside of it as well. So the goal is to get this, and this takes a little bit of manhandling, and you do have to have this slide back where it belongs, which is with that second notch lined up with where this is going to go, and then you have to just push on it. And it seemed like that one went in pretty easy that time. It's just a matter of getting it kind of lined up right. And then once you got it lined up right, then you can slide this back forward. I like to go ahead and put my safety on, just so I've got something to push against here. And then all I have to do is I need to put my recoil spring back in. So I'm going to slide this over the top, and again, this is going to be under a lot of pressure. But I'm going to push it down, and while I'm holding it down, I'm going to rotate this back counterclockwise. Once it gets over top of it, it'll hold it. Sorry. And then you just keep sliding it around until you hear it pop. Once it pops, we should be in good shape. We can then take the slide off, and we can make sure the action's working right, which it is. Check the safety, and we then have a functioning 1911. So hopefully that was informative. If you first time kind of tearing this thing apart, I couldn't find a real good video on this, so you may not consider this a real good video either, but hopefully it was enough information to help you out, and feel free to leave me any comments if I did anything wrong. It appears to be the best way to do it, though, with this new gun.